Speaker Paul Ryan wrote an op-ed in the Washington Examiner against President Obama, and in it, he basically taunts him. Now, let me give you some of what he says, and then I'll explain what issues specifically he calls him out on. So he says, "It's clear Obama saw himself as the latest in a long line of progressive leaders. This certainly explains the sheer breadth of issues he tried to take on. Whether it was cap and trade or immigration or gun control, he wanted to lock in progressivism's gains. But his ultimate legacy will be showing the country that progressivism in practice just doesn't work. In more and more areas of American life, President Obama has given government the starring role and pushed the people into the wings. He might consider this a success, but here's the true measure of progressivism. After 8 years of it, the vast majority of Americans say we're on the wrong track." Okay, so first of all, I love how he's disregarding the elephant fact in the room, which we just covered yesterday or the day before. Obama has a 58% approval rating. That is legendary in how high it is at this point in somebody's presidency. Because it's late, man. The normal trend is when it's this late, people go, "I don't even care if you did shit that we like. Kind of sick of you." But with Obama, people are saying, "No, we kind of like you." Now, why is it that right now, of all the different times, right now, people are like, "We like you"? Well, maybe it has something to do with the fact that he's been most progressive recently. So, what's my evidence of that? The Iran deal. The Iran deal. He does a nuclear peace deal with Iran and cuts off their path to a nuke and opens up the lines of communication and puts us not on a fucking war standoff footing with them. People kind of like that. The Cuba deal. Hey, we've been kind of an asshole to you guys for a really long time. How about we stop doing that and maybe try to do reforms through communication? Turns out people kind of like that. How about the new overtime rules? This was a big story recently. He made it so that more people can get overtime pay. Who doesn't appreciate that? Hey, some of these workers, they bust their ass, but they don't get any overtime pay. They fall into this gray zone where they should get it, but they don't get it. Fixed. Boom. People look at that and they go, "Oh, that's fucking reasonable. I like that." They don't necessarily categorize it as progressive or conservative or whatever. They just go, "I like that act." So, okay, yes, approval rating up. Wonderful. This is what he does. And also releasing the nonviolent drug offenders, which he's done endlessly recently. 4 or 5 different occasions? Now he's pardoned and commuted more sentences than the past however many 5, 6 presidents combined. So this stuff actually is all progressive, whether or not people know it. And people go, "Hey, kind of like it." So now his approval rating is up. And if you track his approval rating as time went by, it's not perfect, but you do see, broadly speaking, when he acts more liberal, more progressive, his approval ratings spike. When he acts more conservative, his approval ratings drop. So what he's talking about here is just ridiculous. Now, furthermore, what does he go on to bring up as the cornerstones of his argument? Obamacare and Dodd-Frank. He's like, "Obama, way too progressive. That's the problem with President Obama. She's so progressive." Obama has done some progressive things, but if you talk to an actual progressive and an actual liberal, like myself, what'll I tell you? Nowhere near progressive enough overall. So his evidence is Obamacare and Dodd-Frank are so progressive. What? No, the whole problem with Obamacare is that it's nowhere near progressive. It's a right-wing reform. I know they like to bury this fact, but it is a fact that Richard Nixon was the first person to propose an individual mandate type healthcare reform. That's a right-wing reform. The idea is not single payer, not a public option. The idea is we're going to force you to buy in the private insurance market, keeping the for-profit capitalist insurance structure in place. That's right-wing. Okay, and it's not just that. Newt Gingrich and Chuck Grassley proposed reforms like this in the 1990s. The Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing think tank, wrote policy papers saying, this is our right-wing reform. Just when President Obama gets in power and he decides, you know what, I'm just going to cave to the Republicans and do their policy, all of a sudden Paul Ryan turns around and goes, aha, progressivism failed. No, to the extent that Obamacare is failing, and it's a mixed bag, it is because it is too far right-wing, not too far left-wing. The actual progressive position is Medicare for all, single payer, which, when you look at the studies, what? The places in the world that have single-payer healthcare systems, the modern nations that have it, have the best healthcare in the world. It's not an opinion. That's not conjecture. That's a fact based on the studies. I know you don't like it, and it's inconvenient, but it's a fact. So he uses Obamacare as like, aha, I got it. Progressivism sucks. Try again, bitch. Because that shows, if anything, your right-wing reform sucks. Furthermore, Dodd-Frank. How many times have I ripped Dodd-Frank? Why? Because it is a massively watered-down piece of legislation that lets the banks and lets Wall Street go back effectively to doing what they were doing before. Yes, there are some little important changes in there, but by and large, it does not go anywhere near strong enough. For example, not having Glass-Steagall was one of the main causes of the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession. We didn't even bring that back. Glass-Steagall, for those of you who don't know, is a reform that separates investment banking from commercial banking. In other words, when you go to your local bank and you put money in there, now that bank can take that money and do all types of crazy casino capitalist bets that are eventually going to blow up. It used to be the case that when you go to your local bank and put money in there, they are not allowed by law to do crazy casino capitalist bets. They have to do safe investments with that money. We got rid of that firewall. So now investment banks and commercial banks can get together and do crazy fucking shit, and that's what leads to the economy crashing. So again, Dodd-Frank, it's too far right-wing a policy proposal. But what does he do? Aha! I got progressivism because of Dodd-Frank. No, you got yourself, idiot. You got yourself. And then the final thing I want to bring up here. He just makes shit up. So when he says, like, President Obama has given the government starring role and push the people into its wings. Okay, the private sector under Obama has grown by millions and millions and millions of jobs. What is it, 18 million or something like that? That's the private sector, not government. That's the capitalist sector. What happened with the government sector? It's been reduced by hundreds of thousands of jobs. This idea of him is like, oh, you're a big government liberal. My ass, he's a big government liberal. I wish he was more of a big government liberal. He indeed is not that. So you're just making shit up. Furthermore, the deficit. What happened to the deficit under Obama? Oh my God, big government. The deficit's going up. No, the deficit has been cut. It's been cut big time. He inherited a $1.4 trillion deficit. Now it's about $500 billion. Now you could say that's not enough. Fine. But he cut it. Unlike George W. Bush, who grew it. So this idea, big government, big government, big government, you just have stale, tired talking points, Paul, that make no sense. And when he says progressivism in practice just doesn't work, well, thank you for disregarding all of the modern nations that largely weathered the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession because they didn't deregulate to the extent that we did. Thank you for ignoring the social democracies, which are much more healthy than we are. You look at the quality of life, how people self-report their happiness in Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden. Look at Canada's middle class, which surpassed ours recently. Look at the fact that their healthcare systems are ranked higher than ours. Look at the fact that they get more vacation time, all these different things. More progressive countries kick our ass on so many different fronts. But what do these guys do? The facts are inconvenient, so just disregard them and say smug, idiotic things like progressivism in practice just doesn't work. Wrong, Paul. In fact, how about this? Conservatism in practice just doesn't work. What's our ideal that I can point to of a progressive system, a social democracy? I just told you, many places in Europe, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden. What's your example of the most conservative country? Saudi Arabia. Which team you want to be on? Now, I get it. That's not fair because they're conservative in a different way. Granted. But even his conception of conservatism is wrong. This is a guy who believes deeply in trickle-down economics. That's what gave us the Great Depression. The Great Depression. Deregulate, cut taxes for the rich. Everything will be great. Oh my God, we collapsed the economy. That's what gave us the Great Recession. Deregulate, cut taxes for the rich. Oh my God, what have we done? We just gave us the Great Recession. Now, what's their answer today? Deregulate, cut taxes for the rich. I wonder what's going to happen.